Bringing people and communities together on seclosounds.org.
Your listening station.
Good morning and welcome to the Sticks Radio Show here on Seclo Sounds. Today is the first part of a two-part sort of series of shows featuring the artists from the Flashback Festival, which happens up in Rockingham on the 9th and 10th of July. And later on, I will give you details of how you can be going to the festival free of charge, win tickets. That's later on in the hour. Today, the guests, though, are two of the guests that are performing at the Flashback show. Later on in the hour, I'm going to be talking to Glenn-Gregory of Heaven 17. But first up is Marcus-Vere of Living in a Box. And let's play, well, the song that gave them their name. This is Living in a Box and Living in a Box. Well, that was Living in a Box and Living on a Box, and my guest today is none other than Marcus-Vere, keyboard player with the fabulous Living in a Box. Good morning, Marcus.
Good morning, sir. How you doing?
I'm doing real good. You're part of a big show. I'm hoping to get along in. It's actually in July. It's the 9th and 10th of July. It's up at Rockingham, so it's slightly out of our area, but it's such a big show that I had to talk to a few members of the cast as such. So it's great to be speaking to these people. I remember the 80s very well. It's my era. Anybody who listens regularly to the show will know the 80s is my thing. So tell us a little bit about how Living in a Box got together and what you've been doing since the heyday of the 80s in 85.
Well, we got together in about 1985. Which is, I hate to say it, some 30 plus years ago, although it doesn't seem like it. It's flown by. I met Titch, who was playing in a local band in Sheffield, which is where I was promoting gigs at the Limit Club, which was a sort of small venue at the time. And he brought in a demo, and I didn't like the songs, but I liked his drumming. So I started working with him, and then Richard came along and heard the demo of Living in a Box, and we needed a vocalist, and he was just perfect for it. So he sang on Living in a Box. We drove down to London, got into a telephone box, pulled out the yellow pages. Remember those? We don't use those. I do remember.
Oh yeah, I'm an old man. Do you know I'm the same age as you all, but about 3 months.
Right. Well, there you go. So we pulled out the yellow pages, started at A for A&M, and by the time we got to C for Chrysalis, we'd got a record deal, and
wow.
that's how we all started.
But that's when you could get a record deal. Now it seems to be much harder. When I speak to bands, much harder to get a record deal and to get the should we say the airplay, the promotional facilities that were offered in the 80s.
Yeah, it's completely changed nowadays. I mean, those days you could, it wasn't easy then, but I mean, you could phone people up and get a meeting and they either liked it or they didn't. Now it's all about, Facebook likes and Twitter followers and, building things up that way. And I think the industry has gone through a major overhaul, and it's going to be interesting to see how it turns out. But I think things are slowly starting to steady up, and budgets are starting to be spent on signing new artists, but it has been really tough, yeah.
It has. I'm glad I'm not in the music business as such, but, So, obviously you had the heady days, you couple of top 10 hits, Living in a Box, and you had Blow the House Down, which I'll play at the end. And one thing I didn't realise is one of my favourite guys, Brian May, was on the guitar.
Yes, he was. We were in Olympic Studios, which is now a cinema in Barnes in London, recording with Dan Hartman, and we were just in the middle of we were in the middle of Blow the House Down. I think we'd actually virtually finished it. And Richard normally plays the guitar on tracks, and we knew the Queen were in the next door recording studio. And the engineer and Dan Hartman, who was producing, he said, go on and ask the guys. If we can't ask, if you go in, you go and ask, see if Brian will play a guitar solo on this. So we went in and just said, he was there, he was sitting there recording. I said, Brian, do you mind listening, to a track we're doing called Blow the House Down? Do you want to pop down and have a listen? And he came round, very sweet as pie. I mean, everybody knows what a nice guy he is, and he really is. And he went, I didn't know people were making music like this anymore. Yeah, just hold on a minute, I'll get my guitar. So he got his guitar, and an hour later, after a few takes, we got this monster guitar part on Blow the House Down, which... Actually, the guitarist for the live tour that we're doing lots of dates this summer, but one of them is Rockingham, and he's now learning Brian's guitar parts, which is no mean feat, let me tell you.
No, he's one of the guys I'd love to have on the show. I've never managed to get on. I've had the MD of Queen and a few people who know him, but I've never managed to secure him. So one of these days I will get him on.
If I bump into him, I'll give him a nod.
Please do. It will be absolutely good. I'd absolutely love him. I think he lives fairly locally as well, which is quite handy. He lives North London, Hertfordshire area, I believe.
Right, well, Brian, if you're listening to this, get on the radio. Phone in.
I'll tell you what, I'd drop all the rest of the guests to get him on. It would be absolutely amazing to have him on. Yeah. I'm a big fan of his, and in lots of ways, because he's into 3D photography, I know for a fact. So let's not keep talking about him. Let's talk about yourself. I mean, you had 5 or 6 really good years touring the world with... or touring Britain with the band, and then it all went sort of pear-shaped.
It all went quiet. Well, it all went quiet because we're in the middle of the third album, and Chrysalis Records, who we were signed to, was spectacularly failing in the States. Room in Your Heart, which was probably our biggest record, which a lot of people don't even associate with us because of the name Living in a Box, by Living in a Box. They never really got past that. But Room in Your Heart was a big hit, and it was top 5 all over the world, except the States, where I think it went to the glorious number 62. And we were just fed up with that. I mean, that's half of the world market that you're not being able to recoup money back from all the money you're spending and touring and doing videos, and so it wasn't really working. So Richard decided to go on his own and basically take some of what was going to be the new third album for Living in a Box onto his solo record. Sadly, it didn't work out, as it often doesn't when people leave a band. In fact, I think only George Michael I can really think of who left the band environment and became more successful. It's very hard, it's rare. And after that, we all went our separate ways. We're still good mates, we still hang out, and I started writing songs for other people, and Richard went on and did a bit of music, and now he's actually more into a writing career. He's into writing a novel at the moment, believe it or not.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, you mentioned Richard. He wrote some stuff for Lisa Stansfield, among others, and then you mentioned Anthony Critchlow. What's he been doing for the last since well, basically since living in a box.
Well, since living in a box, I mean, he started out, actually, before I met him, building clocks and things out of acrylic, and then he went into metal work after he finished with us, and started a lighting company, and actually did lighting in the houses of Madonna and Prince, and became an absolute superstar in the interior design world. So he's gone on and from strength to strength. He moved down to the South Coast a couple of years back, and when we came up, we were always asked if we'll get together again and do some shows, and we did some shows in 2004. We did an arena tour, which completed my dream of once playing Wembley Arena, which we managed to do. And we just thought, well, let's do it again. Let's get out on the road and do some work. But this time, Richard is not singing with the band. This time, Kenny Thomas is fronting the band, which is quite exciting because I love Kenny and all the music that he did in the late 80s, early 90s, and so it should be a good night, for sure.
Yeah, because I did see it was Living in a Box featuring Kenny Thomas. I was going to ask you about that in a little while. Mm-hmm. So, how did the Kenny Thomas? I mean, he's well known as a great singer, great performer.
That's right.
How did you get him to join you?
I wanted to do these dates that we've been offered, and he said actually he didn't, and that was fine. I wasn't going to push him on that. He's always been a bit of a reluctant performer, and I think when we performed in 2004, although we had a good time, I think that was enough for Richard. So he wanted to leave it there. He's always open for doing more recordings with Living in a Box, but for the live work, he didn't want to do it. So I had a think, and Kenny was signed to Chrysalis Records. He was signed to the same record label as we were. We bumped into each other loads of times. In fact, we were on the same radio promo tours around the country, and often crossed paths. And it was just, I was looking for somebody who was a name, who could sing like Richard can sing, and there aren't many who can do that, and Kenny certainly can. He's got the most insane voice. And he was working with Quincy Jones, of course, who's one of the soul greats of all time, produced Michael Jackson and various other people. And I said to him, look, do you fancy fronting Living in a Box for a few months and see how it goes? And he, bless him, he said, yeah, he was well up for it. And I could tell you, he sounds incredible on the tracks when we got in the studio to try it out. It's just he's a natural.
Okay. Well, what have you been doing? Now, we mentioned already what the other two members have been. What have you been doing since sort of middle of...
Apart from having kids and a family and doing all the things that other people do when they move on from running around in Los Angeles and having a hula time with a band, settling down. And then we started a television company back in the 90s, basically making TV for young children, because I had young children, I was surrounded by them, and I wanted an outlet for music. And so we started doing a series of TV shows about diggers, tractors and fire engines, believe it or not, because that's what my kids were interested in at the time. And so instead of writing songs about living in a box, I ended up writing songs about concrete, which
a challenge.
Worked out quite well. I set myself a serious task of one of the parts of the films that I was writing for, which was a TV show, had a digger running around in concrete. So I came up with 1 step, 2 feet. 1 step, was it 1 step, 2 step? Better not step in the wet concrete or something. I can't remember whatever the hook line was. But anyway, a serious change of career, and then we sold that business, and then started writing songs for other people, and wrote a song for Tom Jones, which was, my mother was most excited about that.
Wow.
Working also with ABC, and I've just written 4 tracks on the new ABC album, which is called Lexicon of Love 2. Now, Lexicon of Love, as you know, is just an absolute classic. And, he's just signed a fantastic new deal with Universal.
Wow.
And you're going to hear a lot of new ABC material. It is superb. Full orchestra.
Wow.
Like it was on Lexicon of Love. Anne Dudley doing the orchestrations. And the first single is one that I've written with Martin called Viva Love, which hopefully you'll be hearing.
Oh, hopefully I'm going to get it. I mean, I Lexicon of Love is one of my favourite albums, and Martin has one of those voices.
He does.
It's a shame he's not on this show, actually, because I am looking forward to... I'm going to hopefully get along to the 2 shows.
Yeah.
One thing I must ask you, where did the name Living in a Box come from? I mean, it's it's a bit of a mouthful, and B, it's an unusual name, isn't it?
It is. Well, it's something that somebody said to me, and I think often songwriters write about things that they just pick up in conversation because it's the most natural way to write a song. You hear something that someone says and you think, oh, well, a friend of mine who was living in a small council flat in Sheffield at the time just said to me, I feel like I'm living in a box. And I didn't really think anything about it at the time, but it must have dropped into my subconscious because once I'd written the backing track, and it just seemed to fit really well, it just sat on that bouncy bass line, am I living in a box? Am I living in a cardboard box? And so that became the hook line. then we wrote the song put the rest of the song around it, and that's how it came about.
Frighteningly, there's probably more people living in a box now than there ever was.
Yeah, and you see it. You tweet. If you look it up on the internet, people are talking about it all the time.
Yeah, it's not good. I mean, the song was actually covered by Bobby Womack as well.
It was. I mean, Bobby Womack. He was guesting on a show with Tony Blackburn on Radio London at the time, and for the first time and the last time this ever happened, because I actually spoke to Tony not that long ago. Tony gave us a real